Entitled neighbors declared war when I stopped babysitting their kids for free. Let me tell you about how my neighbors, Lisa and Greg, tried to turn me into their personal unpaid babysitter, and how their entitlement dragged my parents into a mess I'll never forget. I'm a 20-year-old college student living at home while I finish my degree. It's a good setup. I save money on rent, help out around the house, and get to enjoy home-cooked meals from my mom. My parents are great people, kind, generous, and well-liked in our neighborhood. That's probably why they were so close to Lisa and Greg, the neighbors who moved in a few months ago. Lisa and Greg weren't just friendly acquaintances, they were good friends with my parents. They'd bonded years ago at a community event, and when Lisa and Greg moved in next door, my parents were thrilled. Lisa and Greg had struggled for years to have kids, and after a long journey with infertility, they adopted Max, 7, and Ella, 5. My parents admired them and often talked about how resilient and loving they were, saying things like, "Lisa and Greg deserve all the happiness in the world after what they've been through." When Lisa first asked me to babysit, my parents were actually encouraging. "They've had a rough time," my mom told me. "It's good to help them out once in a while." At first, I didn't mind. Lisa had knocked on the door one evening looking frazzled, saying Greg was stuck at work and she had a last-minute emergency. I agreed to watch the kids for just an hour or two, and Lisa couldn't thank me enough when she came back 3 hours later. She even brought over cookies the next day as a thank you. But soon, the requests became more frequent. Lisa would text me asking if I could just watch the kids for a bit, but a bit always turned into hours. Once, she asked me to babysit during my online classes, saying, "They'll be quiet, I promise." Spoiler, they weren't. One Friday evening, Lisa asked if I could babysit so she and Greg could go out to a fancy dinner. I politely declined, explaining that I had a big paper due for school and couldn't spare the time. Lisa's response? She offered me $20 for the entire evening. I thought she was joking. "Lisa, that's less than $3 an hour," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Well, it's not like it's hard work," she replied. "You're right next door, and the kids love you." When I still said no, she showed up at our house, kids in tow, and tried to guilt-trip me at the door. "We've had such a stressful week, and this is the only time we've had to ourselves in months," she said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "It would mean so much if you could just take them for a few hours." My mom, who overheard the conversation, didn't jump in right away. Instead, she said to me later, "Maybe she's just overwhelmed. Just help out when you can, it's good to be neighborly." It didn't stop there. Lisa and Greg started showing up more frequently, always with some excuse. "I just need to run to the store real quick," or, "We have a doctor's appointment, and sitters are just so expensive." I tried to push back, but my mom kept encouraging me to be understanding. My parents were still stuck in the mindset that Lisa and Greg were good people who just needed a little help. That changed one Saturday afternoon when my mom witnessed the entitlement firsthand. Lisa had dropped the kids off for what she claimed would be just an hour, but 3 hours later, there was no sign of her. I had a headache and was trying to keep the kids entertained when Greg called, not Lisa, to say they'd gotten delayed and would be back soon. My mom overheard the conversation and saw how frustrated I was. "I didn't realize they'd been doing this so much," she said, looking concerned. The next time it happened, Lisa dropped off the kids without asking and left me to deal with them while I was in the middle of an online exam. My mom came into my room, saw the chaos, and finally stepped in. She called Lisa and told her to come pick up the kids immediately. When Lisa arrived, she brushed it off like it was no big deal. "Oh, I knew she'd be home, it's not like she was going anywhere." My mom didn't respond at the time, but I could tell she was furious. The breaking point came when Lisa and Greg decided to involve my dad. Greg cornered him in the front yard and started complaining about how selfish I was being. "We all look out for each other around here, don't we?" he said, trying to guilt-trip him. Lisa chimed in, saying, "It's not like she has a real job or anything important to do." My dad didn't lose his temper, but he was firm. "She's in college, not your nanny. And if you need this much help, you should hire someone who's actually willing." Lisa and Greg left in a huff, but my parents were finally on my side. The final straw came when I came home one day to find Max and Ella playing in our backyard, unsupervised. Lisa had apparently left them there while no one was home, assuming I'd take over when I got back. My dad was furious. He called Lisa immediately and demanded she come get her kids. When she arrived, she acted like nothing was wrong, saying, "Oh, I knew she'd be safe with you. You're always so responsible." My dad didn't hold back this time. "Lisa, this is the last time. If you leave your kids here again without asking, we'll call the police. You're taking advantage of our family, and it needs to stop." Since then, Lisa and Greg have kept their distance, though I still catch them glaring at me whenever I leave the house. My parents, who were initially reluctant to intervene because of their friendship, now see Lisa and Greg for who they really are, entitled and manipulative. If there's one thing I've learned from this mess, it's that setting boundaries is essential, even if it means disappointing people. Some people will take until there's nothing left, and they'll still act like you're the problem. The best thing you can do is stand your ground, and, in my case, make sure your security cameras are working. Update 1. You'd think the story would have ended when Lisa and Greg were forced to back off after my dad threatened to call the police. But no, entitled people don't just stop when they're told to no. Instead, they decided to escalate in the pettiest way possible. After the whole backyard incident, Lisa and Greg hired a local high schooler, Jenna, to babysit Max and Ella. At first, I thought, great, they're finally leaving me alone. And for a while, things were quiet. But then, my parents started coming home from social events and community gatherings with stories about how Lisa and Greg were bad-mouthing me. "I just don't understand why she's so unwilling to help," Lisa apparently told one of my mom's friends at a neighborhood barbecue. "We've been nothing but kind to her, and after everything we've been through, you'd think she'd have a little more compassion. At least Jenna understands what it means to be a part of a community." Of course, my parents heard about this and told me. My mom rolled her eyes, saying, "Lisa can't seem to handle the fact that you set boundaries. Let her gossip, it just shows how childish she is." At first, I shrugged it off. If Lisa wanted to play the victim, that was her problem. But then, I started noticing that Jenna wasn't around as often as I'd expected. Apparently, Lisa and Greg were still trying to cut corners by only hiring her a couple of times a week. The rest of the time, they fell back into their old habit of leaving Max and Ella wherever it was most convenient, usually with me, even though I'd made it clear I wasn't available. It started subtly. One morning, I was heading out to class when Lisa stopped me in the driveway. "Oh, hi, sweetie. I just wanted to ask, Jenna has cheer practice this afternoon, and Greg and I have a meeting we can't miss. Could you watch the kids for just an hour or two? It would really help us out." I stared at her, incredulous. "Lisa, we've talked about this. I can't babysit for you anymore." Her smile didn't even falter. "Oh, but it's just this once. And it's only for a little while, you're so good with them." I repeated myself, more firmly this time, and got into my car. As I drove away, I saw her standing there, looking annoyed, but I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next weekend, I came home from running errands to find Max and Ella sitting on my porch. No text, no call, just two kids waiting for me with their backpacks. I knocked on Lisa's door, furious, but she didn't answer. When I called her, she picked up after a few rings, acting completely nonchalant. "Oh, they're there already? Perfect. Jenna had to cancel last minute, and we just ran out for groceries. We'll be back soon." I couldn't believe it. "Lisa, I told you I'm not available to babysit. You can't just leave your kids here without asking." "Oh, come on, it's not a big deal," she said, brushing me off. "You're right there, and it's not like they're hard to handle. You're making this more dramatic than it needs to be." I hung up and called my dad. When he came home, he was livid. He marched straight over to Lisa and Greg's house, demanding they pick up the kids immediately. When Greg opened the door, he looked annoyed but came over a few minutes later to collect them, muttering under his breath the whole time. That should have been the final straw, but they still didn't get it. Over the next month, they kept trying to slip the kids into my care whenever Jenna wasn't available. It was always the same excuses. Jenna had to study for a test, or, she's got practice today, and we just need someone for an hour. When I refused, they'd act like I was being unreasonable. My parents finally confronted them at a neighborhood meeting. My mom was done playing nice. Lisa, this has gone on long enough. Jessica has her own responsibilities, and she's not your fallback babysitter. You need to stop leaving your kids with her. Lisa, of course, started playing the victim. It's not like we're asking for much. You know how hard it is to find someone we trust with the kids. Jenna's great, but she's so busy, and sometimes we just need a little help. My dad didn't hold back this time. Then hire someone else. Or figure out how to manage your schedule better. Nathan isn't responsible for your lack of planning. Lisa stormed out, and Greg muttered something about how my parents were being ridiculous. Since then, they've mostly kept their distance, though not entirely. Occasionally, I'll still catch Max and Ella wandering into our yard, and I'll have to send them back. Jenna's been babysitting for them more often, but even she looks exhausted whenever I see her. My parents are fully on my side now, but they've admitted they feel awkward about the situation. We were friends with them for so long, my mom said recently. But honestly, I don't even recognize them anymore. I wish I could say things are fully resolved, but with people like Lisa and Greg, I'm not sure they ever will be. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that entitlement doesn't go away, it just finds new ways to rear its ugly head. All you can do is stand your ground and protect your own peace. And if that means having a firm no kids policy, so be it.